there's people that ask me now because of, like you've heard, like I get reservations to these places. So when I come in and I'm swinging my dick around, they're like, oh, why don't you take me? Why don't you? Like Nate, Nate's devastated right now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome on back. It's the You Gotta Try This pod with Large. I got Ian behind the ones and twos. We have a guest every week so far. I don't know how often we're going to have guests, so I'm trying to kind of front load it a little bit. And today we have a guy that doesn't do a lot of prolonged guest spots, and it's Gaz. Gaz is the guy here. He's Dave's best friend. He's the oldest employee here, or the longest tenured employee. I'm the oldest employee. He's the longest tenured employee here. I keep calling him employee. He's the longest tenured employee at Barstool. Been here from the beginning, and he controls everything. He's Littlefinger. He's behind the board. He loves a little bit of controversy. So he comes, but he's just going to come in and he's going to shoot the shit with me about food because Gaz goes to more restaurants than I'm actually jealous of Gaz. I'm a very happily married man. I love my wife and I love my kids. But sometimes I just want to be able to jump out and grab like a great reservation last minute and eat whatever the fuck I want without having to be home or without somebody like asking me for Apple Pay. And so when I see guys like Gaz, I would certainly say you'd be in that camp too if you ever ate any place fucking interesting, Ian. But so anyway, so Gaz is going to come on and we're going to shoot the shit with him. As always, Ian is the voice of God here, doing all the production, all the shooting, and all the stuff that doesn't make me look like a total asshole. People have been giving us very good feedback, and I appreciate that. A couple of go fuck you fatties, but for the most part, it's been extremely positive feedback. So I just want to say, if you like what we're doing here and you'd like us to keep doing it, the only way that we can keep doing it, because it's a new show, we're starting to do some advertising and all that kind of stuff. So the ad dollars are coming in, which helps. But in order for us to keep doing this, you got to you got to subscribe. If it's on YouTube, if it's on Apple Podcasts. And one of the things that we're going to try and do is if you leave a review, 1-star review, hoping it's a 5-star review, but any kind of review where you want a question answered. I don't mind DMs. I read most of my DMs. I can't get to all of them, but I do read and I interact with a lot of people. My DMs are open. You got to try this. The brand page also has DMs that are open. So there are ways to get in touch with us. But one of the ways that you can almost guarantee that I'd be able to answer your question is if you throw your question into a comment on or into a review on Apple Podcasts. Let's say, is that fair to say, Ian? I'm probably saying this incorrectly.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a comment or review, 5 stars preferably, and we'll get to your questions.
Yeah. So I think that's one of those ways. Like some guy just hit me. Hey, Large, Will from Wisconsin here. I know this guy. We've never met, but his name is Will Drury. I think I'm allowed to use his whole name. Who the fuck knows? But he's commented on other stuff before and other stuff that I've done here at Barstool. He said, Will from Wisconsin here. April 26th in La Crosse, Wisconsin, there's an event called the Beer, Wine, and Cheese Fest, showcasing all the best of each category from all over Wisconsin. I feel like this event would be right up your alley. It's held outdoors on the Oktoberfest grounds. It never disappoints. If you're free, get some people together, come here. He's like, I can help you with your tickets or lodging or whatever the hell you need beforehand and after. Maybe it won't work this year, but definitely keep it in mind and keep up the amazing work at Barstool from Will. Like that type of DM, I love. And this type of beer and wine, gentleman sent in Tony Pacos, right, in Cincinnati. I'm going to go to that fucking place. I want to go to this. I don't know if I can because it's right around the corner, April 26th, but this is the type of shit that I want to do. A beer, wine, and cheese fest in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I go to food festivals in New York City. I can't stand them for the most part. You wait 20 minutes just to get like a fucking tater tot with a shaved black truffle on it. And it's just not worth your time. You go outside of the big city, you go to like La Crosse, Wisconsin. I used to go to the Iowa State Fair. I used to take people, customers every year to the Iowa State Fair. I know it's not necessarily a food festival, but you know that you eat like a fucking pig at the Iowa State Fair. Anything where it's like a rural food festival, man, That's a good time for me. The Crawfish Festival in Augusta, New Jersey is one of my fondest memories when I first started dating my wife. She's like, let's go to Augusta, New Jersey. Never heard of the place before. We drove up there to a Crawfish Festival of all things, and it was fantastic. So people who are sending us stuff, get me or get us You get what we're trying to do here. And if you'd like to interact at least on that type of level, you could do it in the comment section of Spotify or Apple Podcasts, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And we're more likely to answer that if it's a 5-star review than a 1-star review, obviously.
Oh, look at that. That's a little extortion. I like it, Ian. Let's put it up there. Another thing, after last week's episode, which I thought was another banger of an episode of Frank the Tank, I got a lot of feedback with people saying we've never seen Frank just kind of chill. Frank was just chill. Right? I mean,
I think with food, it lets people just relax. I mean, there's certainly things that you could get mad about with food, and we thought that might happen with Frank, but we made it through a full hour almost, no blow-ups, which
absolutely
is crazy.
None. I tried to poke the bear a little bit by asking him about the Mets, but with it, he is positive on the Mets, so it was good. I could have easily have hit a couple of trigger points for him, and I don't want to bring him up now but you know, it was the most lovely conversation I've ever had with Frank, and I've known him for years, and I would invite him on in a heartbeat again.
Also, Frank was right. It came out legitimately, like, I think hours after we posted the clip that Citi Field was ranked the #1 ballpark for food for the 3rd consecutive year in a row.
Yeah. Which isn't to say that your ballpark isn't also a very good food destination, but the numbers kind of tell you, right? It's you know, Citi Field kind of reigns supreme. The Yankees had announced this week that they're doing one of my favorite things from going to baseball games as a kid was the soft serve in the helmets. I love that. I you know, wherever I go, minor league or major league ballparks, soft serve in a helmet is a fantastic little dessert. Yankees are doing tiramisu now in their helmets. Kind of cool, right? So, I mean, ballpark food the quality of ballpark food has shot through the roof, as the prices have also. Don't come at me or whatever. But anyway, yeah. So I thank Frank the Tank, thank Fights. Obviously, Stu is my boy. And Gaz, who's going to come in and do it. Obviously, Nick Mangold was the guy who kicked us off. I spoke to Willie this week, and Willie's going to come on. Willie Colon, who you know is one of my favorite people in the fucking world, to be honest with you. I also have a small apology to make. Ian's mom decided to tune in to see what her son is doing here at Barstool. And I think when she had tuned in, it was during the conversation that Fights and I were having about donkey semen. See how I kind of did a clinical term, and how they used to be drinking it on Fear Factor. So if you're a mom who's worried about how your little boy, your little pretzel belly, is doing in the big bad city working for a place like Barstool Sports, and you tune in and you have a 50-year-old guy talking about donkey semen, it's not the best thing in the world, but I assure you, Mama Becker, that I'm doing fine with the kid, and he's an upstanding individual.
I'm just glad she turned it off then.
Oh, did she?
And didn't keep going.
Yeah.
Because it got worse.
Yeah. We got into a little bit of the porn stuff. Another thing, we had spoke about St. Patrick's Day last episode, and somebody had hit me and said, I know that you celebrate with your family on the weekend. I made that a point that if St. Patrick's Day falls on a weekday, my family typically gets together and celebrates the Saturday after St. Patrick's Day. But this person had said to me, what self-respecting Irishman doesn't have corned beef on St. Patrick's Day? That's the guy had said. And I get it, but I never said that I didn't have corned beef on St. Patrick's Day. As a matter of fact, there are a couple of bars in and around my area. One of them is McMurphy's. McMurphy's in Ridgewood, New Jersey, is an excellent Irish pub. If you guys are looking, if you're in northern New Jersey, there's 2 excellent Irish pubs up there. McMurphy's I go to all the time. So if you want to catch me lifting a pint, I'm there. My son Finnegan, talking about another Irish thing, he's a bar back at McMurphy's. That's how close we are. A great family owns it and whatnot. So that's my favorite. There's another one in, I believe, Westwood called PJ Finnegan's. And PJ Finnegan's does a red Reuben, which instead of the traditional Reuben with sauerkraut, they use red cabbage. So they have the rye bread toasted with the corned beef. They do fresh corned beef in and around St. Patrick's Day. Then they do the red cabbage on top of it instead of sauerkraut. They call it a red Reuben, I think, or something like that. Absolutely delicious. But So those are the places we go to around St. Patrick's Day. And on St. Patrick's Day, when it's impossible to step into McMurphy's, it's impossible to step into PJ Finnegan's, what we do is we go to a Jewish deli. So I went to the Kosher Nosh this year in Glen Rock, picked up a bunch of corned beef sandwiches, came home, had a bunch of corned beef sandwiches, and we thank our Jewish brethren for hooking me up on St. Patrick's Day.
It's sort of like how the Jewish people eat Chinese food on Christmas.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yes. So you have a lot to be thankful for there. So I'm all covered. I'm all covered for St. Patrick's Day. I spill more corned beef than the average person eats every year. So please don't worry about that with me. One of the things I wanted to do too, just as a segment, we're going to have more segments as this show starts to develop. But right now we're trying to make it kind of a heavy interview show and just kind of let you guys get a feel of what we like to do and what we like to talk about. But one of my first loves has always been history. I do a Twisted History podcast. It used to be a weekly podcast, and it was killing me when we were doing it weekly. My wife actually hosted with me alongside Jeff Vibert. We were doing it weekly, and Ian, it was like writing a term paper every week because all of a sudden you have to get intelligent about the French Revolution before you talk about it. It was killing me. It was the heaviest lift that I've done here intellectually. So we do it once a month now. There's one dropping this week. It's going to be a very good one. It's a twisted history of fall from graces. So think about Bill Cosby. He was America's dad when I was growing up, and now he's America's rapist. So if you think about that in historic terms, we're going to talk about Robespierre. We're going to talk about maybe, I don't know, Benedict Arnold, people like that who used to be on top and then absolutely fucking lost it by the end of it. And history has some tremendous collapses. Anyway, that's Twisted History. We've done so many episodes of Twisted History that I've talked about food so often in the podcast that I think I'm just going to do a little twisted food history segment every week just to kind of tell people. Glenn Bell, the name Glenn Bell, he was an entrepreneur who first opened up a hot dog stand somewhere in California, San Bernardino, and he did it in 1948. So think about this guy. You put all your life savings or whatever it is into opening up a hot dog stand in 1948. The hot dog stand did okay, but there was a taco stand across the street that was tunning it. And this taco stand was tunning it, just selling hard shell tacos. So Glenn Bell decided to try and get one of their tacos and reverse engineer the recipe. Eventually, the owners of that taco stand were like, hey, listen, I hear you're fucking around with it. We'll just teach you how to make a very good taco. So he took their tutelage and he went on to open up a taco stand and close down his hot dog stand. So 1948, Glenn Bell opens up a hot dog stand, doesn't do too well. By 1951, he opened up a taco stand that underwent a couple of different changes. So it was originally Taco Tia, then it was El Taco, before he said, you know what the best name is? My last name, Glenn Bell. And that's what became Taco Bell. And now you fast forward and they're pushing out about $2 billion with a B, $2 billion worth of tacos to drunk college kids every year. So there's a little history of food. Glenn Bell is why it's called Taco Bell. It's not because they're ringing the bell. And that guy originally wanted to sell hot dogs. He reverse engineered and stole some sort of recipe from some Mexican place. And that's why we have Taco Bell. And you are welcome. That's a nice little history fact, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I wonder if you could do something for social right now. Just be like, do you know why Taco Bell is called Taco?
Like, so do it look into the camera?
Yeah.
Do you know why Taco Bell is called Taco Bell? Is it because they ring some sort of bell? Is it because it started in Philly, maybe in the shadow of the Liberty Bell? No, it's because a guy named Glenn Bell, who originally opened up a hot dog stand in 1948, tweaked it. It became a taco stand in 1951, went through a couple of different names until he said, you know what? My last name is probably the best name, and that's why Taco Bell is pumping out $2 billion worth of tacos every year to drunk college kids. You're welcome. That's a twisted food history fact for you.
I would have like gun to my head. I would have 100% said that it had to do with the bell.
Yeah. I think, and listen, we'll get into, a lot more twisted type stuff, but just in case your mom's listening to this first one, I went a little bit benign with Glenn Bell. I think we can get right into Gaz. Don't you think so? We already did the interview. We did the interview before this. And sometimes when you pre-shoot an interview, you have the benefit of knowing what you're going to talk to him about. So we are going to talk to him about burgers because Gaz is a burger guy. We're going to talk to him about a lot of what's going on in the New York restaurant scene and beyond. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in Barstool as far as food and whatnot. So without further ado, here's my man, Gaz. All right, so as promised, I'm sitting here at You Gotta Try This with one of my favorite people at Barstool. I don't think that he considers himself as close of a friend to me as he is. I don't think he realizes how much I cherish his friendship. It's Gaz. What's up, Gaz? How are you, my man?
What's going on, Lodge? Thanks for having me. I don't do a lot of content, but when you asked me about this, I was on it.
Absolute fucking bullshit. I walked in today. I casually strolled into the office around 10 a.m. Nice life that I have. And Gaz is on another show. He's on Roan.com. So, and while I'm talking to him, he said, by the way, I just got asked to be on Out and About. Gaz is a fucking content machine, and he likes to pretend that he's not. Go ahead, Ian.
And then also on Name Show today.
Yeah, that's coming up next. Yeah, I've been in a little bit of a car wash. I feel like I haven't been in a while. So yeah, this has been a lot today.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this the most. I'll tell you that much.
Thank you so much. It's like Lisa Ann just came in and she's absolutely being car washed by everybody. The first time when I first started working at Barstool, I mentioned this, that when we have stars in the office, some of them have limited, I don't know, fandom. Some of them have overwhelming fandom. Lisa Ann came into the old HQ and guys were lined up basically to talk to her, perhaps touch her or get her to sign something. Stone Cold Steve Austin was another one. He came in here and the place went fucking bananas. But the reason I have Gaz on here, Gaz, what do? You run everything, right? You're second in command.
Yeah, I've been here forever. I'd say that. I'm first employee. So I've been here for 20 years, done a little bit of everything. I don't really know what I do right now, and we like to keep it that way. But
as you say that, and you say that in a flippant way, every time we try to do something at this firm, I still call it a firm, at some point it goes past Gaz's desk. And I will tell you that when I started the history podcast, it was because I was talking to you about it. Just one day you were like, oh, Lodge, I was listening to history. I was like, oh, I was listening to history podcast too. He's like, you should fuck around with that. So we wound up doing Twisted History. We're still doing it once a month. But I mean, we have like 200 episodes of this thing. And I think it's because basically we got the blessing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's similarly, you basically gave me Ian for this, right? I mean, you're the guy that I have to thank for being able to do this stuff.
Yeah, Ian's great. I mean, for that, like, I always have my ear what's best for Barstool content-wise. Like, so I think that when I see things working on social media, I'm like, oh, maybe we should jump in and let's try. So I'll always give you an opinion. It's not up to me anymore, or I don't want to say anymore, but Dave is the head of content staunchly now that he is back in the mix full time. But yeah, I think I try to help out any way I can, I guess.
Okay. So why are we having Gaz on here today? I will tell you exactly why. I sit directly across from Gaz. And one of the things that we often talk about, since I'm not a huge sports fan, we don't have a ton of shit in common, to be quite honest with you, but we talk about food all the fucking time.
Right.
Particularly since you've become this rich guy. You've immediately put yourself on all these lists. You've immediately been able to get hard tables in and around New York City and beyond, obviously in Miami and all. So you try the finest restaurants probably a couple of times a week, and you've grown to have what I think is one of the best palates here at Barstool. I just call Barstool Wall Street. That's how fucking I'm just so reticent to let go. Don't you think that you've gone from 0 to 60 in the last 5 years?
I'd say that palate question, we should clip that. You might lose this job if Dave hears you say I have a great palate, because
why?
But I think what it is, Large, is I think money changes people.
Okay.
And I think if you look back, old Barstool, I was living off of Subway and McDonald's. And when, the first 10 years, Dave could only pay me, peanuts basically.
Right.
And then when you start to come into some money, you're able to go and try the luxury things. And I think this speaks to like Dave early on too. He was the same way. He'd just eat baguettes and Panera every day. And now he's out all over the place with like memberships to clubs that I couldn't sniff no matter what. So yes, I think as I've gotten to try new things and living in New York City, living in Miami, I've refined my taste. And I'd like to see what Dave thinks about where I would take him nowadays compared to where I would suggest going prior to that.
So I'm going to die on this hill. Mm-hmm. And if you do happen to clip it, whatever you decide to clip, I'm going to say that the new Gaz that I know has got a different and more educated or refined palate than the Gaz that Dave knew 15 years ago. So I think that it's unfair to not recognize that growth. I think that's kind of fair to say.
That's fair. Yeah, fair.
Did you also do, but you agree with me when you say that you specifically started to go out and do stuff with food once you started to make more and more money here with Barstool. Have you done that with other luxuries too? Does Gaz have a drawer full of fucking watches? Does Gaz, obviously you're traveling more, which I think is something that everyone does. Is there a garage filled with fancy cars? Is there something else that you've also stepped your game up as you're able to afford it?
No, I think for me, I mean, living conditions, food is one of them.
Right.
I think, I snowmobile a lot. Just bought a new snowmobile the other day.
I've always known that about you. You're one of the only guys that I think is the fucking guy to go. I go to Duke's for lacrosse. I go to you for snowboarding.
Yeah, very random niche thing to do. Travel, but that's simple when you get money. You want to start seeing things you never got to do. Upgrading apartments. I used to live with Feidelberg and Murray Hill back in the day. And now, I got a 2-story place in West Village. So that's no big deal. You start to upgrade your life in that sense. But no, materialistic things like I'm wearing, Barstool. I got this shirt for free at a bar out in Montauk. This is a Barstool hat. Like I don't really do materialistic. I used to have a brick watch that broke. But that's about it.
But it broke, and it was your fault it broke because brick watches are made to last.
Correct.
And they're a good investment for anybody.
It was me. I was roughhousing.
It must have been. You cook?
I cook breakfast every day.
An elite breakfast, or do you
no,
do
it's more
oatmeal?
just get the protein in the body, get the eggs in the body. I don't. I'm very simple cook, and that's probably why I like to go out because I'll eat the same thing every day of the week. I could tell you if you say what time is it, and I'll tell you what I'm eating because I'm a regimented person.
We were about to, so it's 12:30 on a Wednesday, 12:30 in the afternoon. Ian had the place set up a little bit early. So I went to go, hey guys, you want to go a little bit early? You walk up with your salad, sweet green, I think.
I'll rotate around there. Sweet green, just salad. Depends on kind of the day, but salad for lunch.
You're like, I need 17 and a half minutes to finish this. Yeah. And then I'll be in the thing. So you are a little bit of a creature of habit. So you're boring for part of your day, and then you kind of let loose probably around dinner.
Monday through Thursday, I'm zero. I'm asleep by like 7, 8 o'clock at night during the week, and I'm up at 6 in the morning, and that's it.
That's how you stay in shape?
Yeah, I try to eat clean and then air it out on the weekends.
Will you be able to find the picture on social for me, Ian? I had masturbated to a picture of Gaz once on a boat where all of a sudden you had your shirt off, right? You kind of look like Jason Statham a little bit, kind of supermodelish type thing.
Yeah, that picture took the rounds. I don't know. Yeah, I was on a boat. I mean, take your shirt off. I didn't think it was that hot.
But it was fucking breathtaking is the point I'm trying to make to you, Ian. And I was trying to give you a backhanded compliment.
I appreciate it.
And I know that my wife keeps it above the bed every now and again. So if you want to pull that up, that's Gaz.
Feel free to post those.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up 20 minutes south of Boston in Randolph, Massachusetts.
And your last name is?
Gulczynski.
Which is as ethnic as a name that is at Barstool. I don't know if there's a more ethnic name other than Zvateta Shemedza, which is Za's name, right?
Yeah.
So Paul Gulczynski.
I think we got 7 consonants in a row, which is kind of wild.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah. What's the nationality on that?
Polish and Swedish. Well, all Polish and Swedish is my mom's side, but Polish my dad's side.
So when I talked to Feidelberg a couple of weeks ago, because he grew up kind of by Fall River. So he was talking about some of like the Portuguese influences. Yeah. And then when I had asked him about a dish that he doesn't think that he can get back or that anyone else will ever try, but it's like a dish that just resonates with him and he can't forget it. And he had said that his cousin's grandmother made like some corn chowder or something. So I'm always interested in people and their backgrounds, whether or not that shaped them gastronomically growing up. Did you grow up in a household that was filled with kielbasa and pierogi and all that kind of stuff?
Kielbasa definitely was like a staple of our, at least once a week we'd have a kielbasa. Corned beef, like we do like the Irish dinner. Yeah. We would do those. That was like my birthday dinner. My birthday's the day before St. Patrick's Day. So that was always my go-to for like, what do you want for dinner for your birthday type of thing?
A boil.
Give me a boiled dinner.
Really?
Yeah, that was that. So those would be like the 2 special things. And then we grew up like, my parents were like separated early. My dad was working all the time. So we always have to fend for ourselves. So I would always like order food. So I was like a simple eater.
Are you a big family?
No, not big. I have a younger sister and then my dad and his new wife.
But if I was to go to a Gulczynski family party, is it ice cold shots of Polish vodka? Like, is it, when you come to my house?
Yeah.
For St. Patty's Day, which we just celebrated on Saturday. We spoke about this last week on the show. My mom is is doing corned ribs. She's boiling pork ribs, which are disgusting to look at, but they're because they just turn gray.
Right.
But they're very, very delicious, just like a corned beef is. It has a lot of salt in it, which obviously goes a long way. But you know that you're eating in an Irish household. Can I get a little Gulczynski stank on it if I was to go by your house?
No, we wouldn't be ripping like Polish vodka or anything like that.
Yeah.
When my dad got remarried, he married into an Italian family.
Oh.
And that has been electric.
It's an upgrade.
So it's been about 20 years, 25 years of that. And now we're doing the 7 fishes. We're doing wine flowing. Yeah. Early on, growing up, it was a very small Christmas and stuff like that and Thanksgiving. It wasn't a lot of booze going. It was very, I would say, consider it pretty dry. But now we cut it loose big time with the Italian side of the family.
Did your tastes in wine? Because I'm going to have a wine guy come in.
Right.
One of the things that we used to do at Barstool Breakfast, and I know you used to love Barstool Breakfast, and nobody busted Willie's colognes more than him. But Willie's cologne, no one was able to get under his skin in a respectful way. Some people can get under his skin, but him and Gaz were always like this. And I could tell Willie's like, I just want to run that motherfucker through a pipe. Like, you know what I mean? And you would never fucking stop doing. But when we were in there, whenever I'd have a couple of wines and I'd take him into the bar afterwards, and it was a Friday, so people would come around and, be like, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. Everyone would try it. Guys like Roan, they'd be like, man, I really want to get better at this. And I didn't get better at wine until I did have a couple of bucks in my pocket. Obviously, I've spent all that money since then. So has your wine game stepped up too?
Yeah, that's something I'm similar to Roan. Like I want to know the wines to do. I went out to Italy last year for the first time abroad. I'd never been really abroad other than with Riggs for like 24 hours for work, but to London. But that's when I went out there and I discovered like how much I actually loved wine. But now I'm trying to figure out how do I duplicate that in the States.
Yeah.
The natural wines or like the organic, like I need that. So like when I walk into a store like Manly's in West Village, I'm like, I need this. I don't even know what I'm starting, but like that's the base.
Okay.
Like, get me a natural wine. There's a couple of restaurants, Buvette in, that's a French restaurant that does a lot of those. But I won't drink. When I have a Napa wine or a Sonoma wine, I'm fucked the next day. Like, it doesn't matter if I have 1 glass or 100, I'm going to feel terrible.
Right. So you just want the natural stuff.
I need the natural, clean stuff.
I do Scotto's Wine Cellar on Court Street in Brooklyn. Jimmy Benedetto's guy who runs the place, and he's fantastic. So I'm going to have him in here. And I'm going to have him in here just to do wine tasting for everybody. And if I did, I think that's something we'd be like, fuck, Lodge, I would do it. I mean, as long as it's outside of work hours, so we have to pretend to do that for the camera. But I think it's something that everybody could benefit from.
No, I think, like a learning, like having a som.
Yeah, having a som come in. No big deal.
Yeah, that'd be great. So learn that
White
word.
Trash Polak from Boston. Yeah, we'll have a som come in.
Yeah, didn't know about that until we sold the company 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I guess I was going to say, like, I always want a red.
Yeah.
I'll drink a red on the beach in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, me too.
I don't even care.
Yeah.
Keep the whites away from me.
So you don't want to clip that out. Keep the whites away from me because that can be misconstrued. As can my Polak thing. I meant that affectionately, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So I'll stick to the reds. It doesn't matter what cabs. I can't. If you put 6 in front of me, I couldn't tell you which one's which.
Okay.
I just know one's red and one's white.
I think that it just like a little bit, like maybe 2 or 3 tastings, because I went to them very early in my career and it changed my confidence.
Yeah.
So if I sit down at a restaurant with anyone and someone was to hand me a wine list, particularly when I first started, it used to terrify me. Like as far as making everybody happy at the table. But
that's
now,
like for me, like when I go into a restaurant, I'm a single guy. So like I'm ripping around New York City, going out to dinners, taking that, and I'll take a couple buddies out, but I'll go out on dates or whatever. 2 things. Big wine menu. How am I going to navigate this without looking like an absolute clown?
Right.
And then having to take your hat off. Those are things where, you're at a nice restaurant. You're like, shit, what do I do there? How's the bald? Is she going to be like, fuck, he's got a bald head? Like, that's crazy. That's been a talk of for 20 years at Barstool. But when you first meet someone, that's something you got to think about.
Can you tell us how integral you are to the fabric of food content at Barstool? Because when I was speaking to Dave years ago about, I guess, bar pies and North Shore beefs. North Shore beefs get mentioned on this show just about every fucking week.
Right.
You were the guy who was, I think you might have recorded the first one, right? Weren't you the guy, weren't you the All Right Frankie guy for pizza reviews and shit like that? Yeah,
before there was, hey, All Right Frankie or Austin now, it was me, because I was the only employee in the office at that time that could do it. There was no one else actually physically there to do it. So yeah, when we went out, he's like, let's go out and start doing some pizza reviews because I have to eat pizza every day. we picked up at that point we were using like a flip like phone basically to record it. We didn't have a video camera at that point. But yeah, and then we started going around the South Shore doing pizzas.
And now it's kind of, well, the pizza reviews speak for themselves, right? They're, I don't know, they're a cultural phenomenon, right? Everybody knows. People who hate Dave or who don't even know Dave know him as just a pizza guy.
Correct.
And I'm like, no, there's a bunch of other stuff you could hate about him or love about him if you want to, right? You know, but they know him, you know, specifically as it. But now everyone's kind of dipping their toe in this because I can have anybody in this office in Barstool on this show because everyone likes to talk about food in one way or another. I can drag it out too far or whatever. That's why we created this show. Mm-hmm. Is there a way that we can become that aggregator? Like, I would like to get to a point where we're doing You Got to Try This, and at the end, I could be like, now, make sure you stay tuned because Chef Donnie is making a cheesesteak with Michelle Obama, and the snack boys are eating a Twinkie made out of fucking clay. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, to get it under one roof, I think it's kind of cool. Like Frank is destroying a fucking London broil and you know, I don't know, like there's so many fun. Marty Mush is trying to get into per se and flip flops or something like that. Like, don't you think like that's a good direction that the firm is heading towards? Or are we doing too much food now?
No, I think however you guys have started, it's obviously taking off. You're getting a lot of followers with doing what you're doing now. But I look at it as like how Barstool Sports is. Like Barstool Sports is the head of the snake, and then you have all these different tentacles or octopus, and you have all these different tentacles where it's sports, pop culture, entertainment. Now look at it like the head of the food is like food, right?
Right.
And you got to try this. You got, you know, the Donnie shows out there. You got Kiki Cuisine with Joey Kamaska.
Yeah.
You know, maybe someone does a burger thing. There's just different lanes that you could go in, and there's unlimited growth opportunities and a lot of advertising that want to be a part of it. So I think it's the right way to think about it. So I'm glad we're here now.
Yeah, so am I. Will you get people mad if I ask you how good of a town Boston is for food? Because you now have been all around the United States and you've done some stuff internationally, but let's just talk about the U.S.
Right.
If you were to name the top 5 food cities in the United States, I'm not going to ask you to because I don't think a lot of people have that on the tip of their tongue. No. Do you consider Boston in the top 5?
No.
Do you consider it in the top 10?
There's two things that
The thing is no for the top 10, right?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't even cross my mind. People were asking me because I was talking a lot about burgers in New York City and how much I have like a list of like a shit ton of them, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, so now I'm getting a lot of people like, where's your favorite in Boston? You're from Boston. I'm like, don't have one.
Really?
Like there's not one. And now a lot's changed in Boston in the 8 years that I've lived there. So maybe there's different ones and maybe I have started to start a list to do it and I'll see where they rank. But there's nothing Boston's more known for than like, other than sports and like drinking, like just going to like dive bars and like hanging out like that, but not for food. There's not one, clam chowder, like lobster rolls.
Yeah.
Like those would be them, but I'm not a gigantic seafood. That's another thing I've actually started to do more of as you go to like Nantucket and all these fancy places. But
but not as you go to Nantucket. Yeah.
Oysters. Like I could probably give you a sick oyster list at some point.
Yeah. You're an oyster guy now
I do
too.
love oysters. Yeah. So oysters is another one where I've tried as many oysters as whenever I go, we'll have oysters whenever I go out for dinner. If they're available, I'll try them.
Where do you spend most of your time? So New York and Miami would be the two places or no?
Right now I'm New York City 100% of the time. I was doing the tax thing for New York and Miami, where I was splitting time, but now I'm full-time, full tilt New York. I actually don't know if I could live anywhere else after now in my life.
Is this the number one food city for you in the world? Yes. I mean, as far as that goes?
From where I've been so far, yeah, New York, it has everything. That's the best way to put it. You want the best Korean food? You can find that. You can almost walk to everything. Exactly. I don't go above 14th Street often. Like I'm Soho, Tribeca, West Village. Like there's just enough there. And I've been, I feel like I've done 10% of it. So
we were lucky enough to spend some time in Chicago at the Chicago office, particularly when Notre Dame was making the run. I had to go to a lot of those game watches, which by the way, I hate them, right? Because it's nothing but it's just uncomfortable for 3 hours, right? But going around Chicago and trying all these little places, and we still have places that Ian's going to be putting out in the next couple of weeks. Chicago is a great fucking food town.
If I was going to say one that I thought would probably maybe be able to go not toe to toe with Chicago, with New York, it would be Chicago. Like everyone's telling me like if you like steak, and you like beef and you like burger, go out there for that. So I'm going to I'm going to line something up for going to the Chicago office and trying some things.
I think it's an elite food town, but to your point, like Andrew Zimmerman Zimmern. Like, the guy who does whatever, the weird food stuff.
Yep.
And I love him. I think that the guy is great. And when they asked him what the best food city in the world is, that's a real question, because this guy has eaten, off of a hubcap in Mexico City, and he's eaten on a junk boat in Beijing, right? He said the best city in the world, he's like, I could tell you, it's got to be New York, because Queens is a better food city than any other city in the world. Right. And it's just fucking Queens. The Village on down, like when we get stuck on the East Village, like I can stand on First Avenue and 6th Street and say, go to Mario's and grab a great fucking scone, go to Hen House and grab the burrito taco, go right over here to Little Kieran, go right over here to Electric Burrito. That's the thing about New York. You can sometimes, like if I wanted to take you to Charles Pan Chicken up in fucking Harlem, sometimes you got to feel like you need a passport to get there, because you're so stuck kind of where you are, because it's got everything that you need. So as much as I shit on New York, or the people who live here, affectionately, I think that there is nothing fucking like it. This is a blessing to be here.
I went to Brooklyn for the first time ever.
Holy shit.
This weekend.
I know. And it's wonderful, right?
Yeah. I went out there because I wanted to try a certain food out there. So I that's why I went, and it's a whole nother planet. It's like now you got all these other options. I just don't know how you do it all here. It's crazy.
And Brooklyn's weird too, because you can go to the sexy part of Brooklyn, right over where everyone kind of, I'm from Brooklyn, and if they live there for 6 months. Or you can go to the non-sexy side where I'm from, over on the Coney Island side, and it's a totally different feel.
Right.
I could do a Brooklyn tour of food with you, and it would take us probably a month. Talk about people in Barstool. Outside of me, if there's anybody here, we'll try to keep it to the New York office just to be a little bit more localized. Who would you like to take for a fancy meal? Who would you most like to take for a fancy meal? Like that wouldn't embarrass you. You know what I mean? Like that you'd be
this is not you, because we talked about going out to dinner for a long time and trying different things. Outside of you, there's people that ask me now because of, like you've heard, like I get reservations to these places. So when I come in and I'm swinging my dick around, they're like, oh, why don't you take me? Why don't you? Like Nate, Nate's devastated right now.
Right.
And that's fair. But if I was thinking about people, I've been feeling out people that actually care.
Like, who do you think has the best palate then for it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know if it's a jive thing, because I think you do get along with everybody until you destroy somebody on the fucking unnamed show or do something. You know what I mean? Like you can
stir some sort of controversy.
Then you become Littlefinger, which is totally great.
Right.
But is there somebody that you could sit across from?
There's people that I go out with very few people at work in general. Overall, I don't blame you. I kind of keep that a little bit separate, but there's people that like Dukes.
He's crazy, right?
Yeah, he works for my group. He's an idiot, and I love him like endearingly. I got him a reservation for his for Christmas that he couldn't get, so that was the thing. But like, he's someone that I feel like cares about where he goes to eat and makes it a point to go out to find good meal with like him and his girlfriend and stuff. So I would go out, and I like Duke. So like he would be somebody that I'd want to go out and hang out with and like try some food and see what he thinks.
And that's another reason for this. There are people. So we started with Nick Mangold. We're only a couple of episodes into this, and Nick's great, and I have a history with Nick, so it was easy to do. Then we went with Stu, and I brought Stu on just because he's cocaine and coffee, right? It's one of those things where it just goes through the roof. Fights, I would have on every show if I could. I just like speaking with fights. And then to have you here, it's sort of like I'm trying to kind of just hit top guys. And the only guy that I'm bringing on, I was like, let's have Dukes in here. And you're like, yeah, let's have Dukes. Like, and a lot of people don't know him and stuff like that, but he's got a sneaky fucking great palate. And a lot of these kids who work for you do. Yeah. Like when I talk about newer restaurants with guys like Bobby or Travie or Ian, not as much Ian because he has a fucking terrible palate. It's very, very impressive to me. So you are going to see some of these names that you've never heard of before come on the show, just because I think these kids actually have something to offer, and that's coming from a guy who fucking hates children. Right. You know what I mean? Guilty pleasure. What's something that you eat, like mayonnaise on aspirin? Like, what's something that you eat that you would be embarrassed that people would see you eating shirtless at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, God. I'm like, I don't know if there is something that there is like I'd be embarrassed by.
You know what I mean? Like, I eat mayonnaise sandwiches every now and again. Like, what is it?
Yeah. We might have to filler bust this one. What is there that's like embarrassing?
I thought it was easy.
I know there's something that like I'm not thinking of right now that people are like yelling right now. Like Dave's probably like, you eat this thing, you're disgusting. And I'm not, it's not hitting me. I will say that there's like some weird things that are very popular and I've never had.
Like, okay, so how about this then? What's the best food you've never had?
Probably a bagel.
You've never had a bagel?
Yeah, that.
Can you clip this out, Ian? Because that is a fucking shanda. I believe that's what the Jewish people call that. That is an absolute fucking disgrace that you've never had a bagel.
Yeah, that's a thing that snowballed into a whole other thing with like people in my circle, like my friends. They think it's like embarrassing that I live in New York City and never had a bagel. And there's like bagel influencers. Like that's a food that like people die by, like Dave dies by with pizza, goes by. So bagels is one of those things. Never had it. And I think it's one of those things growing up. What do we have growing up? We always had like English muffins, like our croissants or whatever. Muffins. So like I just stuck with that. And once I got to a certain point in my life, it became people would just be making would be like, you have to have one. And I'd be like, fuck you guys, I'm not having one. So it just became that. I said I'll have one whenever I get married.
It's not a 1-for-1, but now he's not having it out of spite. Yeah, I've never had a blueberry.
Oh,
I'm 53. I've never had a fucking blueberry. And if they're around me now, I don't know how long I got left on this mortal coil. I'm going off of it without ever having a fucking blueberry. I don't know why, but it's a hill I'm dying on. I couldn't do what you're doing.
Ian, is there anything you've never had?
This podcast episode would be 2 hours long if we did a list.
Okay. You ever had an oyster?
I've not had an oyster.
Have you ever had caviar?
No.
Yeah, he hasn't had anything, to be quite honest. Have you ever had duck?
No.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and you can go a little bit deep, but bagel is absolutely the worst, though.
Yeah,
I think
that's the worst. Yeah.
No bagels is why you get those shirtless boat pics.
That's right. Oh, okay, because of the gluten and all that stuff. That was a little bit of a fat joke. But one of the things that you do, and you do as good as anybody in this place outside of Glenny Balls, is burgers. What's the deal with you and burgers? Is that just something that's a go-to for you that you've always wound up eating?
Speaking of, when Glenny started that, I was so jealous of him. Like at Barstool, I'm like, I've never want to be like on camera. Like I honestly do not like, I'm not trying to be on content ever. So that was,
I appreciate you doing this, by the way. I know that.
Make content, but don't be content is kind of like my thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like into that. But when he started doing that, I was so jealous of him. Going back to what I said growing up, there was my dad would always be away at work. My mom wasn't at home. They were divorced. So what are we getting food? There was a sub shop on our street called Sal's in Randolph. And my favorite food there was the cheeseburger sub. And I still Google in New York City cheeseburger sub. They just don't have them. They don't make a sub. They make a hoagie or whatever they call it. Right. But they don't do a cheeseburger in it. I don't know why. They do cheesesteaks. They do all that stuff. Where do I get a cheeseburger that's in a roll like that? A sub like that. So anyway, cheeseburger.
So hold on a second. So back up then, because that's the answer to like some of the other questions that I've asked. So cheeseburger sub or cheeseburger hero, maybe here in New York. So we're going on a long hero roll, maybe seated Italian, something that's got some structure to it. We're going 2 patties next to each other to kind of fill in that boat.
Adding extra, they could be like 3 or 4 sliced in half. So you just like roll them out there. You get like 3 or 4 cheeseburgers. That was it. So like I'd start eating that, and then fast food was a thing growing up. Like it was just, so you're just eating fast food. So I'd be ranking like, was McDonald's better than Wendy's? Burger King better than that? Like, so I was always, cheeseburger is my favorite food. That growing up, that was my thing.
And so now you've gone, and again, this is the story that we're telling. You've gone from ranking whether Wendy's is better than McDonald's and all that stuff to whether L'Artusi is better than Fort Charles. Correct.
As I've been able to now afford a $50 cheeseburger, which is insane. But yeah, now I'm able to go there or get reservations to these places because I'm like, luckily like I work at Barstool, and sometimes when I email, they're like, oh, you work at Barstool. Like, right. There's ways that helps. There's perks to that. Being Dave Portnoy's guy helps. I don't throw his name around like some people do around here.
Rico?
But I'll ask Dave, like Bosco does. But like Dave will help. Like Rico. There's places that Dave can go to any restaurant at any time, and I will be strategic on when I'll ask him for a reservation to a certain place. So I'll ask him maybe once a year.
You been to Rayo's?
Nope, that's on the list of need to go.
You know that I've been to Rayo's a bunch of times.
That's in Queens or?
No, so it's in Spanish Harlem. So it's all the way up on the east side.
Same thing to me.
All the way up on the east side.
Okay.
I'm in Miami in a couple of weeks with my family. I told you about it.
They have one down there.
Yeah, they have one. Somebody told me that the Rayo's down. I'm not a huge Rayo's guy. I like the idea of Rayo's. I love going there. The last time I was there, I was hanging out with like Chuck Zito or somebody. Like there's always a good Nikki DeVest, who had since passed away, used to make like Greek martini for me. Mm-hmm. It's a better scene than it is food. So it's
impossible reservation.
It's an impossible reservation. And the guy that I used to get 2 tables a year, and the gentleman who used to give me because he had moved to London, I had just lost contact with him. So when I started at Barstool, I was like, oh yeah, I want to take somebody. I think Dante had asked me to go to Rayo's. So I called him up and I didn't get an answer. And then I wound up getting an answer back from his wife and he's dead. So my table at Rayo's is officially dead. I still go at least once a year, just, by coincidence,
right.
But it's one of those places. So can I start using Dave, you think? Like at some point, because I'm doing food content.
Is there a place that you've never been that you would want, that you want to go?
That's the whole fucking idea. I've never been to Fort Charles, and it's doable. Fort Charles is doable, is going early and stuff like that. I know that if I really went about doing it, I can get it and probably ask other people. But and we're going to get to this right now. So Gaz agrees to come on the show yesterday. He was like, "Yeah, I got some time. We'll do it 12:30 or whatever." I'm like, "Perfect." Today we come in, I'm like, you still good for the thing today? He's like, not only am I good, it's 12:30. I'm like, yeah. He's like, what time are you recording to? I'm like, doing rubbing after this till 3:34. I just got hit. You want to do an early thing at Fort Charles? So you and I are going to Fort Charles almost directly after this, and it's going to be my first time, which makes this my favorite guest so far. Nobody else has taken me out to eat. I'll pay. But nobody else has taken me to a good spot except for fucking Gaz. So I appreciate that. We're going to have a good time there.
I'm excited to go down there and try some things with you. I went on Saturday, so I'm still actually kind of full from going there. Actually, sorry, I went Friday night. And so I'm still pretty full from going there, but I'm interested to try some new things for me on the menu down there. So I'm looking forward to that. And you can try like some of the ones that everyone goes there.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want.
Yeah. I don't really give a shit about anything. Like I just want to go to the place and kind of get it. But if you want to order for the table and try anything, I'm DTF for everything. But I think that if you were to ask me where I'd like to go that I haven't been, I don't know. I don't know, because it would have to be a newer place, because all the old standards in New York I was able to go to when I was in the industry. Yeah. So like now I don't have an undying need to necessarily go somewhere. I find myself being drawn to Portillo's is doing a pop-up in New York next week. Portillo's, which, we do work with in Chicago. I called up the guys like, I got to get in that. Portillo's in New York City. Like that to me is more exciting than someone getting me, an omakase masa or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, so from that thing.
That's why like people ask me like, where do you want to go now that you haven't been to? There's so many like new restaurants that are hot for like the reasons of like them being hot, right? Like how good is the food? We don't know. Like Corner Store is a place that everyone, Taylor Swift's going there. It's like, I went to it and I think it's a scene and it's great. And you're always going to see good people and you're gonna have a good meal. But some of the original, like the Fort Charles or those places, like I lived in here for 8 years. I've only gone to Fort Charles like 5 or 6 times, which is kind of crazy because I've always wanted to go. I set a Resi notification for like every single day. That's how I got it this morning. Like I woke up and I happened to get it for 4:00. But yeah, there's so many like Hot Teresi, which is like part of the Carbone group that I haven't been to. But I feel like in those you're kind of know you're going for like the scene as well as.
Doesn't that piss you off? Like as a guy, like you said, you're a single guy. So when you are going out, like when I go out with Annie, I could take her to some place where I know we're basically having very good food surrounded by ugly people. So because that's that, our priority is that you don't have that necessarily as the only priority for you. When I went to Poppy Steak in Miami earlier this year, they did the $1,000 ribeye.
The beef case.
Yeah. And so everybody else, there was 8 people at the table. When they came out with the case, with the light, there was 6 people with, flashlights.
Yeah, and Levels is playing. Avicii Levels is playing. People
the smoke
bananas.
is coming out of it. Yeah. And I swear to God, Gaz, I went back in my seat. I was the only person not doing this.
Right.
There's 9 fucking employees around this steak. Yeah. And I'm like, can I just get a little more water? All I want is just a little fucking more water. The steak was fine. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't $1,000 ribeye. It was $1,000 ribeye, but it didn't taste like whatever. It was fine. The pastrami there was fantastic. They brought it out in a cloche where they popped it open with the thing. I found that place made me more angry than made me full. Is that because I'm 53? Yeah, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Like I know, like when I lived in Miami, I went to Poppy Steak and you're going there. It's good to bring people that are first time in Miami. Yeah. They want to be like, what the fuck is this? Like, that's like a scene. Like that's something you're going to be like, that's the Instagrammable moment. You got a bunch of Instagram models kicking around. Like, you know what it's like.
Of course.
Like that's the type of thing that you want to take them to. Like taking them to sit in like a hole in the wall that probably has amazing food, but there's 4 people sitting there. Like I want more to find those places in New York because those are like the authentic, like sitting in your grandma's, kitchen in an Italian kitchen, like type of thing. There's Emilio Bellatos, which is like
Emilio Bellatos. Yeah.
Which that's what I feel like when you walk into there, like you're going to be in there for 4 hours eating and like food's going to take a while, but like you're getting the authentic feel. And maybe they've become so mainstream now that it, but they still have that feel to it.
It hasn't been ruined yet, Emilio's.
Yeah.
But Devlin, who we're both close with, like when I took him down to Miami, he came down for the race with it. And I took him to La Camaronera. I think he was more impressed with eating, the rock lobster tail. They marinate in ketchup actually before they dredge it and then deep fry it. And then we go to Poppy's steak together, and he can't get that out of his system because Devlin's always fucking looking to make content. Right. So he's one of those guys. Like I tell you what, he would be good to aggregate some of this food shit. Devlin loves to fucking eat and drink too. He's got a pretty good palate. So I think I'm beyond that. Right. So places like the Polo Bar.
Never been there.
Okay. So I worked on top of the Polo Bar when they had put it in, because when I worked for Canaccord, I was on 5th Avenue and 55th Street in the Coca-Cola building. I've never been there either. I walked in there and, the tartan wallpaper and the whole, it seems like a place that would agree with me. I don't want to give them the satisfaction of me fucking overpaying to sit there at a bad time with a bunch of fucking douchebags. So I don't know. I'd rather do Coochie Fritos with Willie up in Harlem. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Polo Bar, I say going because everyone's like, got to go to Polo Bar.
Got to go.
The burger, like they say.
And if you take a girl there, she's like, oh shit, he's got to be in Polo Bar.
So you're kind of hitting a little bit of everything on that invite. Yeah. So that's one on the list that I know that everyone loves to talk about going to, that I want to try. I have some like places that I like to go like for burgers that like are kind of off the beaten path and you can get reservations easy or even walk in and get them. So I have those like old faithful ones, but some of the top tier places that we go for, you can't, it's very hard to go. We mentioned I went to Brooklyn for the first time. I went out there because Red Hook Tavern.
Okay.
And that's where I had a burger that was kind of changed my life. I've had the same top burgers for 4 or 5 years now. That rejiggered my thinking and my list.
I haven't had burger at Red Hook Tavern.
That's another.
That's not on your list.
That's the whole thing. We've changed because I went there Saturday afternoon for the first time.
Oh, so this is just happening.
This is kind of breaking news.
Do you mind if I look at the list right now? You're cool with it? Fort Charles is number one. Fort Charles is number one with the bullet.
Not anymore.
Whoa.
Not anymore.
That's
Fort Charles is my favorite restaurant and it's not even close. Okay. Like overall experience, food, anything you get, awesome. The guy that works at Fort Charles, we'll meet him tonight. I think he'll be there, Brandon. You'll see. You should give him like a review. He's awesome. He's like the best. I think he's the best server I've ever come across in anything, whether it was at a strip club, fucking, a nightlife place, just the best guy. Yeah. Bartender, the best guy. Sit down with you, have a conversation. Feels like he fucking wants to know everything about your family and all that kind of stuff. Right. Like just a great guy. Not overbearing, just not rushing, whatever you order. He's going to bring out 6 other things that you didn't order, but he's like, you got to have this, like that kind of guy. Just a great dude all around. I don't know where I was going with this, but
did you say you got to try this? He'll come out and say you got to try this when you plug the whole thing. Yeah. So I was saying that when Fort Charles was number one on your list, you said not anymore, but you did preface it as saying, because we're going there tonight. Yeah. It's still his favorite restaurant, so don't give us a shit table in case somebody sees this. But what just took the crown?
What's happened recently in the last, I would say, year or so is how much I prefer. I prefer a thick burger.
Yeah, so this is what we're talking about. I had mentioned it the other, we call them pub burgers. Okay, like pub burgers, right? Okay. Those thick ass ones. Yeah. I can't have them every time. There is something absolutely beautiful and special about a smash burger that when you're in the mood for it, you want nothing else but a smash burger. You want whatever the fucking Thousand Island dressing, if they're calling it their wacky monkey sauce, whatever the fuck they want to call it, is great. But I don't know. I think that when I want to sit down and have a burger and not feel like I'm being rushed or fast food, I need a fucking thick, medium rare to rare burger.
It might be mooing at you. Like that's the kind of thing. So I've discovered 2 places over the last, obviously Red Hook Tavern being one of them. And Lord's, which is a English place. Yes. Down there. So, and those are a thicker burger. And so they have actually jumped. I've been thinking about the Lord's versus Fort Charles for a while. Went to Fort Charles on Friday, went to Red Hook on Saturday, and that's when I rejiggered everything. And I'm like, it's time for an update, a refresh on this list.
I've been to Lord's, but I've been there for like a Scotch egg.
Scotch egg is very
Scotch
good.
Egg or Scotch egg? Yeah,
Lord's is they do 12 a night.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's one of those places. So if you don't have the 5:30 bar seating, you're not getting one at 8 o'clock there. They're just gone. So you got to get in there early. That's a resi thing. That's pretty easy to get comparably to some of these places we've talked about. So yeah, that's number 2 right now, and Red Hook being number 1.
So I'm going to say Red Hook number 1.
Mm-hmm.
What's special about the Red Hook burger? This is a food.
Yeah. So
what is on it?
It comes with there's an onion and a burger. Obviously the burger meat, and then you have there's an onion. In it. It's not much different than what they have at Lord's. They have something that they put in the burger meat that gives it a certain taste, and it's a little bit. I don't know if it's like this is where it's like, how do you describe taste?
Yeah. Okay.
It's like wine. Like
yeah.
I'm just going to put myself in a blender where I'm going to be like, everything tastes. It just tastes great.
Yeah.
You just got to have it. And for me, maybe someone like you could go in there and be like, I'm going to break
this is dry aged. Yeah.
You're going to give me like the whole taste wheel that they got, with earthy undertones or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But I just good Dukes. His number 1 too. He's been telling me about it forever. He said that's his number 1, and he's like, I'm like, all right. Now I believe it.
Tonight we're going to fuck around with Fort Charles Lartuzzi with the taleggio, chili aioli, slice of tomato, arugula, and crispy potatoes, I guess, served on the side. I've had this at Lartuzzi. It's excellent. Lords, I haven't had it. Emily, the double stack. That looks like it's a smash burger. It's probably one of the only smash burgers on your list. Raoul's, which is one of my favorite restaurants, but I've never done a burger at Raoul's. I'm a steak au poivre guy.
So you scored that list probably. That's from like a 10-month ago post.
Wow. So I have some very old research done here,
which is fair because
I'm old.
Because I was going to put this out there, and I'm going to do it now. I'm going to give you the most updated list that we have.
Done.
Gaz's New York City cheeseburger.
Go ahead.
Because it's got to be cheeseburgers too.
It's got to be.
Number 1, Red Hook. Number 2,
Red Hook Tavern.
Fort Charles. Now, this is where it gets a little thing. That's a dressed up burger. That's the thick bacon on it, an egg. Yep. That's a lot. That's just not a base. That's like when Dave would say, I just do cheese. That's not just cheese. This is fucking everything. So it kind of fucks up a little bit of like comparing it. Number 4, Portrait Bar.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of Portrait Bar?
I've heard of Portrait Bar. I haven't been there. This is embarrassing how much more places you go to than me. But I'm bogged down with 3 kids and a wife. Like I feel like getting divorced.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's
for the show.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. She's amazing.
Thank you.
Maybe you will be after tonight. Maybe we'll end up going out after.
Exactly. Stare it up. Stare it the fuck up.
So Portrait Bar is right in here in Flatiron. It's a newer place. It's in the hotel on the 5th Avenue and 27th or 28th.
Okay.
They have a small little bar there. Cool little scene as well. Good for a date spot. Number 5, Minetta.
Minetta Tavern is my favorite burger. Yeah, my favorite burger. The Black Label.
The Black Label or the regular one?
Yeah. Black Label. I'm a Black Label guy.
So that's another like $38 thing. But I love that.
I'm telling you what, this guy does not go above you don't go above 34th Street. You don't go.
These you're going to find almost, other than the Portrait Bar, which is near here. Then you get into 2 that are very similar to the Fort Charles thing because they're part of the same group, the Monkey Bar.
Yeah, Monkey Bar
and
is the same thing.
Obviously, which is a Chicago thing. Lartuzzi, which you brought up. Lartuzzi is right near my apartment. I found it. Lartuzzi's great for pastas and all the kinds of things, but they did a burger that they coming out of COVID or during COVID that you get to go. That's why they launched it, because they were doing it to go to stay sustainable during COVID. Then they took it off the menu and I almost rioted.
Yeah, I'm very good friends with a couple of guys who run Italian restaurants and they refuse to put burgers on their menus.
Right.
I'm like, listen, all you have to do is just make it football shaped. Take that great, sort of like your hamburger hero type thing, whatever the fuck you call it, the
sub?
Cheeseburger sub. I think that every place would go absolutely nuts. A little Asiago, you can do a fucking agrodolce type.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense to go to an Italian place and get a fucking burger and not enough do it. So I think Lartuzzi should be fucking applauded for it.
They took it off. And then when I went in there and bitched a little bit, I was like, oh, that's crazy. You can get it. It's back on the menu, but they were like, asked that it's off the menu. It's an off menu, which I kind of like that.
I like that.
Like I like an off menu.
Yes.
Yeah. I like an off menu item. Yeah. If you find out what the off menu item is, or, like the chef or whatever, maybe we're getting too in the weeds, but that's always that's a big move. Can I have the off menu? Like off menu burger?
And I'm really jumping in here. I apologize because I do want the whole list, but one of the things now, which didn't exist when I was entertaining customers, if I would sit down at a steakhouse with 3 other customers and order for the table, you would be laughed out of a place if you ordered a cheeseburger. And now if you go to Fort Charles and you're not going for the cheeseburger, you order one for the table, right? If you go to Lartuzzi, you go and you order the off-menu Gaz burger for the fucking table. They whack it into fours, and it's actually the perfect appetizer, I think. You know,
it is. You split it and then you have it like you have that as an appetizer. That's why people coming out of there, you can't move. You're like, hey, your appetizer's a double cheeseburger with
exactly.
like bacon and all kinds of stuff like that. So then we're at, that's at 8. Number 9 is Le Bee.
Don't know it.
So you used to know it. They changed the name. It was where the Do Not Disturb is. It's downstairs in West Village on like kind of around the corner from Corner Bistro, which also has a decent burger.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the Beatrice Inn?
Oh, Beatrice. Yeah. I've been there a bunch of times. Yeah.
So
and it's a downstairs place. You can go right around and sit kind of by the window or then go in alongside the bar. I've been to the Beatrice.
So they turned the Beatrice in. I don't think it made it through COVID. They turned it into, I think it's called Do Not Disturb, which is a little speakeasy kind of cocktail bar in there. But above it, they call Le Bee, which is the original Beatrice Inn burger.
Okay.
They moved it up there. And that's another one where they have a limited amount.
Excellent place though. Yeah.
And then the final one, which is this is where you go, this is your hungover. And this talks about a thick burger. Jackson Hole. Yeah.
That
thing is like a meatloaf.
Yeah, in a couple of locations. I think the one on the Upper East is the first one, but you probably go to one downtown.
So I like to, that one, that probably shakes a lot of people's head. Like, how can you have a list with them? There's a certain time that you could have that and you'd want that one over all the other ones.
Yeah, I think that's what PJ Clark's is for most people too. Like PJ Clark's is such a great, first of all, PJ Clark's is an institution, but it's also such a great like memory of a burger while you just going down on some frosty mugs with some guys.
Right.
What do you think about people? I realize that whenever I put up any kind of food content, one of the first things that commenters do is comment on how expensive it is. And I don't care if I'm having a slice of pizza and they say I'm not paying $4 for a slice, or if I say that I'm going to go to Raoul's and get their burger au poivre, I'm not paying $35 for a burger. It doesn't bother me because I tell Ian all the time, any kind of comments is good, right? It's good for our numbers and shit like that. But I don't know why that sticks in people's craw that much.
I love how passionate people are about food in general, right?
Yeah.
Like Dave sees this with the pizza stuff. So like, I think you're right. If someone's going to be like, I don't want to I don't really get a lot of people shaming on like the money side of being like that. I think they're always just like, oh, how could you go to that place? Why don't you go to this place? Like Kevin Hayes, the hockey player. Like he's been up my ass for 5 years because he lived here. He played for the Rangers, lived in New York. He says Wolfie and Nell has the best burger in the city. I've never heard anyone other than Kevin Hayes say that.
I've never heard that either.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I haven't gone and done it because I feel like it's out of spite at this point. I got to be like, I can't go there and have it. But I feel like there's a lot of like, what about ism? You're going to start being like, oh, how do you not go to, which I like more of that. I need more people to tell me their spots. There's places I've never heard of that I want to go try. And I have like a list of the ones I want to try next year. I have like an Excel sheet that this is how I track my like burger stuff.
I'm slowing this down now because for social media, I don't know if you know how important social media is to podcasts and whatnot. Can you just go down and give me the top 10 and I will do it uninterrupted. Just give me your top 10. My
top 10 best burgers.
Best burgers. So listen, for people at home, this is our resident, particularly with Glennie moving on to greener pastures for the most part. This is now the de facto burger expert at Barstool. Gaz, can you give me your most up-to-date and recent top 10 list? Blast through them.
Sure. As of today, Red Hook Tavern, number 1. Number 2, Lord's. Number 3, Fort Charles. Number 5, Portrait Bar.
Four.
I got distracted. Yeah, no, number 4, Fort Charles. Number 3, 4. Do it again. Red Hook, number 1. Lord's, number 2. Fort Charles is number 3. Portrait Bar is number 4. Minetta Black Label Burger is number 5. Monkey Bar, Au Cheval, Lartuzzi, Le Bee, and then the last one's Jackson Hole.
And that's almost like a guilty pleasure.
That one's a guilty pleasure.
All right, now let's talk about places that you haven't been that you want to go to.
Yep, we brought a Polo Bar.
Yes, it's one of them.
RAFS.
Don't know it. Never been. Okay.
Everyone's saying I got a Lions Bar.
So you're a guy that when people talk about stuff, you have the fucking list on the side. Because it's like
a notepad on my phone where I'm just like copy paste, save that, and then go research it.
I have 6 of them. Like I have 6 different ones because I never put them into one note. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. But go ahead. So Rafts?
Yeah, Rafts is one. Lions Bar, Polo Bar. Rico's trying to get me to go to Peter Luger's.
Oh, okay. I love Luger's.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah.
Hawksmoor just came out with a new burger.
Yep.
Which I hadn't had. So that's the thing. I feel like these are all like, and maybe because I'm so in it, like these are names that I just see all the time. And I'm like, I want to try. And they're like, how have you never been to these places? The Raoul's burger is another one of those ones where I went to go get it, but you could only get it at the bar.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that because I'm a newbie. So I was like sitting in a restaurant getting ready to do it. And they're like, yeah, you can't have that sitting there. You have to sit over there to get it, which is crazy to think about. First world problems.
Right.
And then if you want to smash, there's Rolo's. That's in Queens,
I've heard about it. Yeah, Rolo's.
And then a smash burger, which I'm not excited to go, but Nowon, Nowon in East Village. That's another one. And then Keen's.
Oh, Keen's.
I heard Keen's has a good burger.
Yes, they do. I would go there.
For mutton.
Yeah, I go for the mutton chop, and you can sit in the same room where Teddy Roosevelt used to sit.
Yeah, that place is
when
cool.
he was like commissioner or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so much history on that. And that's the type of shit. If we go to Harry's down on Hanover Square or something like that, Delmonico's.
I think Keen's is how we started talking about food.
Yes.
Because I was like looking at places to go and I'm like, and I was like, you ever heard of this place? This is when maybe old office.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, what about this Keen's place? And you kind of gave, and I was like, mutton. And then we started talking about the finer things. It's like, all right, you're having mutton and then a duck 3 ways. And like all these different things that I didn't really know existed.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Gaz went from being just steak tips at the 99 to now never going to a restaurant that doesn't serve duck in 3 different ways.
99? The 9's back in Boston?
99, yeah, why not? Yeah,
get some everything.
Yeah, get some sizzling tips and a fucking White Russian. Yeah. Alrighty, so I'm not going to keep you anymore. Right. So this is Paul Gulczynski. He's so embarrassed of his Polish heritage that he just goes by Gaz. He's
no one can pronounce it. Like
yeah, that's true. I did fuck that up. I appreciate you coming on, Gaz. We'll have you on again. We'll do the update. So if you want to update the list with me. Right? Yeah. Because you're now my burger guy.
I'm interested to see the next episode when you give me your Fort Charles breakdown.
Yeah. So directly from this, Gaz and I are going to hop in a car. We're going to go down to Fort Charles and we're going to absolutely fuck it up. And I'll talk about it all next week.
We'll document that.
Yeah. On You Got to Try This. I appreciate your help, Gaz.
Love it.
All right. So that was a pleasure having Gaz in here. Honestly, I didn't know how it was going to work out because I've never heard him be on not that he doesn't have the bandwidth or skill set to do what we do, but I just never heard Gaz unless he was busting balls on any kind of a podcast. He's kind of fucking awesome when it comes to this shit, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a little weird having my boss in here as a guest.
Yeah. You were visibly nervous. Like, I think you were visibly nervous in as much as you thought I might have fucked it up. Like, I felt like the eyes of Ian were upon me and I could not get away. But I think it worked out extremely well.
No, it worked out great. I think if you just listen to it, when was the last time you ever heard Gaz for 40, 50 minutes uncut with just a raw conversation? He pops on a name show. He's sewering someone or giving Dave some information. He pops into Roan.com. He's in there. He's in and out. Yeah. We got Gaz in its entirety.
I don't ever want Gaz talking about me on a show. Honestly, now I've gone from not wanting Gaz to talk about me on a show to now asking Gaz to come back and talk about food at some point on You Got to Try This. So anyway, I appreciate Gaz coming in. Ian, you know how much I appreciate everything that you're doing. And I want to tell you guys again before we go that you have to like, subscribe. If you leave a comment on Apple, Spotify with a 5-star review, make it a question. You can make it a question and then we'll just do like an episode at some point where we just handle a lot of the questions that have been coming around in the review field. And we're about to go straight from here now to Fort Charles. So we're going to go downtown Fort Charles with Gaz. We're going to tape it up. That's probably going to be one of the next ones that hits our social pages. And we can talk all about the meal next week on top of anything else. Also, if you want a specific guy here at Barstool that you'd like for me to talk to or beyond, I think we're having Chef Greeny in week after next. So we're actually going to have like some people from outside of Barstool come in and talk to us. Chef Greeny is one of my favorite people in the world. I've eaten with him a number of times, and that guy can talk food like nobody else. So anything you guys want to see or anything that you guys want answered, you can do that there, including the Fort Charles meal that I'm about. Should I pay for this meal before we go, Ian?
Yeah, because he did get the reservation. I feel like it's good form, even though has way more money than you.
I have a kid in college, and it's killing me. And now my other son is a senior in high school. He's about to go to college. It's going to kill me even more. My daughter is nowhere near being in college, and she's killing me just in shoes. Like, don't you think I have to pay for this meal, right?
If you want another reservation in the future.
Yeah, you're right. I have to pay for this meal. All right. Thank you very much for listening again. You got to try this. We'll see you guys next week.